George Will, in his column today in the Washington Post, negotiations did not end the American Civil War, the Russian Civil War, the Spanish Civil War, or the Chinese Civil War in 1865, 1920, 1939, and 1949. Negotiations don't end civil wars. One side dominates one or the other. So there's no negotiated end to Syria, according to George Will in the Washington Post. So if we want to be involved, we'd have to pick a side and be on it. Firing missiles into Syria may be cathartic, but catharsis isn't foreign policy, he says. So he's one of the Republicans out there who's not excited about this idea.
Interesting. Beautifully turned phrase as well. Speaking of the eloquent, please welcome to the Armstrong and Getty Show, Mike Lyons, CBS News military analyst. Mike, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hi, good morning, guys. Great to be back with you.
Why don't we start, before we get to the president's tweets and the wisdom of various policies, with your thoughts on whether it is solid that the Assad regime, with Russia's and Iran's help, launched a chemical attack in recent days. Do you believe they did?
And it's not solid. So I've been looking at pictures on the internet from the White Helmet guys inside of Syria. They're showing pictures of canisters that they claim are chemical weapons canisters, and they're not. They're illumination canisters, and they look like they've been placed in certain ways. So I do think there's a disinformation campaign out there, and until you can get proof, I know Theresa May is looking for that kind of proof, you can send people on the ground to inspect the kind of chemicals they use. They quickly dissipate, so there won't be a lot of residue there. I do think we've got to be exactly sure. It's that whole thing about you got to put people on the ground to make sure that that's the case. Now, are they capable of? Sure. It's hard to deliver chemical weapons. They usually come from helicopters in this case, not from rockets, not from artillery. That's too close. But, again, and then they were claiming sarin. Sarin gas is a liquid form. It comes with high explosive. We don't see that in any of these pictures.
Well, this one they're claiming is chlorine, I think.
Yeah, and chlorine was not on that list that they were not supposed to get rid of. The Russians were taking care of that. So again, it's not something that they should be doing, and it has no military utilitarian purpose whatsoever. It's just a weapon of terror, and it was against a group that he was trying to negotiate with, and they decided not to, and it broke down. And so he does this. The only reason we could decide to go after him is this. Post-World War II, countries of democracies win the war saying we're never going to do this again. We've passed that opportunity up before, and now all of a sudden we've telegraphed the fact that we're going to shoot missiles inside of Syria. It's just not – I'm surprised the president is doing this. It's going against what I thought was his basic instinct.
Well, let's read the president's tweet again for anybody who hasn't heard it. Russia vows to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming nice and new and smart. You shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it! Exclamation point. Your response to that?
I don't know what to say. It's the first time we've seen a president telegraph an attack. I mean, it violates everything he's said before in the past. Again, that shouldn't shock anybody. It's an act of war on some level. Again, Russia too. Russia is the only country in the world that is an existential threat to the United States. They can say, "Okay, United States, you're going to do this. Here comes 24 ICBMs. Goodbye, Washington. Goodbye, Kansas City. Goodbye, Chicago." I don't get why he would telegraph that. Now, and again, I thought the time was going where he was going to not do anything, but I'm now hearing from sources that it looks like this attack is imminent.
Imminent.
Wow. Wow. Oh, boy.
So are we down to just our stuff's better than your stuff with Russia? Just saying, we're going to do this, you can't stop us?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Russia is just one-dimensional. They're a one-trick pony. It's all military power. They don't have a great economy. And right now, look at how we've backed Vladimir Putin in the corner over the last few months with this attack that he took place in the UK and what's going on there and diplomats. And we're not looking at this through eyes of Russia, who seems to be victims for the past 100 years. And so I don't know. Not a lot of empathy. Now, he did send that second tweet out that was more of a carrot to that first stick that he put out there, and he wants to do something, possibly talk to them. But Russia is not who we think they are, and I don't think that this is going to cause them to change their behavior.
Mike Lyons is online. Hey, Mike, just out of curiosity, I've heard Russia described as having essentially a third-rate military, a first-rate nuclear arsenal, but a third-rate military. Is that true?
Well, what they have is mass, and what they have is people, 450 to 500,000 troops along the border within Western Europe that could easily attack, again, an unthinkable scenario, but a World War III scenario that they roll across the great northern German plain, because the Germans basically have disarmed over the past 20 years. They recognize that the U.S. nuclear power is a deterrence, and so if the Russians decide to come, then we're just going to nuke them, and that'll be the end of it. But if they wanted to, they could roll tanks and create a tremendous amount of havoc into NATO countries. It just depends on what we think that they have to lose for it. So they have capability, and what they have is a lot of it. We don't have the same level of troops there. I'm a numbers guy. Again, so are the Israelis, right? The Israelis the past few days have been attacking these positions inside of Syria because they recognize as the Iranians are moving military assets close to their border, Israel's good at math. They look at the numbers and they go, you know what, that's got to come out. And they send an F-15 out there and it comes out. So Russia has mass, and I think that's something we've got to be concerned about.
So Russia said today they will shoot down our missiles and they will shoot down the launch sites, which would be, or they will attack our launch sites, which would be aircraft carriers, right? So do you think Russia would actually do that?
Yeah, that's. Let's hope we're not going to send pilots over Syria to drop bombs or anything like that, because the Tomahawk cruise missiles have limited capability in what they can do on the ground. We saw last time, cratering an airfield, they can get fixed within 48 hours. We got to look at the military targets that he's going to hit. But if they decide to go after our ships, then we've got an escalation that's going to take place. Just if they hit one, I don't. This battle now is getting outside the boundaries of the geography, because that's where the attack's going to come from. It's going to come from sea assets.
Would we be better off just drawing certain lines for the protection of Israel and saying, all right, Russia, you want it so bad, Iran, you want to hold sway in the region, go ahead. We have no great strategic interest in this particular stretch of sand.
Yeah, I thought that's what he was going to do when he said the 2,000 troops that we have in Syria right now are doing nothing, holding nothing. And I'm not dismissing what their mission is, but when I watched Lindsey Graham talk about over the weekend, the first thing is targeting Assad himself. That's a war crime. Let's just put that out there. But the second thing is about how we've got to hold this land now that we've taken, and we've got to be ISIS 3.0. I mean, are you kidding me? The 2,000 troops that we have there are not even close to doing that mission. We don't want to send 50,000 troops there. We don't want regime change. I don't get it. We've not learned anything from Libya. We've not learned anything from Iraq. And all the beer from the bleachers coming from Washington, D.C. pundits that are goading the president into making an attack. And I'm surprised he's kind of going for it, frankly.
It reminds me of my favorite quote of the last 20 years, probably, about foreign policy. A German said it to an American journalist. He said, you Americans think you can solve everything. And I think Syria may be a case of that. I just think it may be an ugly blot on the planet for some time to come, and we shouldn't waste a lot of time, blood, and treasure messing with it. But
nothing there that is in our national interest. And the issue is we lull ourselves into this sense of air superiority, which is what we have, and we believe that we can do that. But I'll go back further, back to the times of the Romans that said if you want to hold ground and keep ground, you've got to be willing to put your people in the mud, your troops in the mud, and endure that hardship. And we're nowhere near anywhere to do that right now. So we could fly over the territory, we can bomb it, we could do whatever you want to it, but the bottom line is you got to put your youth in the mud to hold it, and there's no reason for us to do that at this point.
Mike Lyons, military analyst. Mike, thanks a million. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.